Hello, everyone. I'm here with Shahanna McKinney-Baldon from EDOT, the Midwest Regional Jewish Diversity and Racial Justice Collaborative, which is an organization working to end the effects of racism in the Jewish community in the Midwestern U.S. and, of course, the JLF grantee. And when I read you all's materials, I just think, wow, that's a pretty ambitious objective. Can you tell me a little bit more about the main programmatic areas your work falls into?
Sure. Glad to be here with you, Jordan. It's an ambitious objective, but we use that wording deliberately because that is our goal. I think probably what we do more today is work to ameliorate the effects of racism on Midwest Jewish community life. But the ultimate goal and the ultimate goal that we all share is ending racism and ending the effects of racism in our lives. Our programmatic areas shake out into about 6 buckets. We have 5 focus communities: Minneapolis, St. Paul, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. And our focus communities program is a really important part of our work. We have Jewish people of color on the ground in those communities who are working to build relationships, represent EDOT, and engage their community organizations in better serving a diverse constituency. We have organizational partnerships around the region and a little bit around the country, although we're very discerning about what types of national partnerships we engage on because our focus is our region. We do family programming. We have a very strong contingent of young families who are reaching for each other. We do synagogue engagement work. We have a teen mentoring program, and we're working to figure out how to expand that a little bit into working with young adults. My oldest is graduating high school and on his way to college, and he's been
Congratulations. Wow.
Yeah, thank you. He's been very involved and he wants to continue. And we've developed a very effective, though informal, pipeline leadership development and coaching element of our work. So we have some key Jewish leaders of color around our region who are doing big things and who credit at least some of their advancement in their own leadership to their relationship with EDOT. And then we also have some strategic priority areas that I'll talk about a little bit later, but we're looking at a 3-year plan to advance our work and zoom in on some new areas. And so we also have these 5 key strategic improvement areas that we're working on.
Yeah, so it's really kind of cool to hear about the way your work has grown towards, from the time it started to like really including all these things and how you're kind of looking to expand them. You've been in operations 2019, and last year one of the things you really mentioned was being proud of the foundation you created in what you called your waning incubation period. What has the transition out of this period and into becoming a more established organization looked like? And how has it affected your communities, your work, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and the community uprisings in 2020 that were centered on Midwestern communities?
Yeah, Jordan, I think I'm going to answer the second part of that question first. Our communities and our work were very affected by the community uprisings that were centered on Midwest communities and by the pandemic. We launched right before the COVID-19 pandemic, and we did some really exciting face-to-face programming, and then all of a sudden we went on Zoom like everybody else. And we learned a lot from that. We actually continued to deliver very high quality Zoom-based programming. And because of how we live in the Midwest, there are many fewer Jews here. There are many fewer people of color here. There are many fewer Jews of color here, and we live farther apart from each other.
Mm.
We've been able to leverage the online programming in ways that we hadn't even dreamed of when we launched. But in terms of your question about how the uprisings affected our communities and how coming out of our incubation period has affected our work, I can't emphasize enough how affected we were, and by we I mean EDOT and our network, by the murder of George Floyd, by the uprisings. We have a lot of stakeholders in the Twin Cities. And so we did quite a bit of work to support people as individuals, to work to support communities and smaller networks, and also to broker communication. After George Floyd's murder, there were all kinds of people who wanted, all kinds of Jewish organizations and media who wanted to talk to Black Jews in Minneapolis. And we were able to help to broker some of those relationships and actually to bring folks onto our team and compensate them for all of the work that they were doing, fielding these requests. In terms of coming out of our incubation period, I mean, one of the big things that's happened for us this year is that we've moved from a model where we were all consultants. I mean, EDOT is nobody's full-time job, even me.
Right.
And so we have done some restructuring this year to bring 3 of our team members on staff with our fiscal sponsor, Center for Community Stewardship. Mwah. We love you, Community Stewardship. They've been such a wonderful home for us. And so we have established a regional team of paid staff, part-time, but actually staff, who are working out of our fiscal sponsor office, and we are looking to build that team out. We are also really committed to creating at least one full-time position in this next year, because we are operating like we're a full nonprofit organization with full-time staff, but we're not that. And so when stuff happens, it's hard for us to catch up sometimes. My father passed away in December, and we kind of had to shut down for a while because we didn't have any full-time staff, and I went off the grid. And our other folks were busy with their work and not mine. And so we're looking forward to continuing to grow and to continuing to build out and build up our systems.
Yeah, and once again, I know we spoke about it before, but my condolences about your father.
Thank you. But you know what? Let me say one more thing about that, Jordan. I thank you very much for your condolences. It's been very difficult, but I have a strong foundation. And one of the things that I learned from my own experience with my father passing away is how hard it is to plug in and ask for the support that you need. And I'm a pretty connected person. I mean, I have a great network and at a synagogue community here in Madison and so forth. But it was hard for me to figure out how to even call my own people and say, can EDOT do a Zoom Shiva for my family? Because it was a time of such upheaval for our family. And so we learned that we need to actually proactively set ourselves up to be able to support folks through life cycle events, whether it's something sad and also when it's something happy. And so we've actually been working to build new systems to be able to do that. And we have very proudly been able to support several families in the past 6 months. in bereavement and other difficult challenges. Bless you, Jordan. And we've gotten the most beautiful feedback from folks who talk to us about how EDOT is their Jewish community, and how we are the ones who they call on, where other people would call their rabbi in a synagogue and so forth. And so it's been a difficult learning, but that's been a big learning for us this year.
So let's talk a little bit about what it's kind of like, building that sort of community. One thing that's really cool about EDOT is you've got people on your team everywhere. You said the cities earlier, actually. So, it's pretty much just like name a big Midwestern city and you've got someone on team there. So how does the work you do together move beyond the space that you're in, virtually, whatever, and sort of into the different communities that you're a part of?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, when we went on Zoom, like everybody, we learned a lot, and we continue to deliver really high quality Zoom-based programming. And what that's meant is that we've been able to build this regional approach and this regional network actually in ways that we weren't imagining when we launched. I mean, who here felt like they were an expert on Zoom before the pandemic started? Few of us. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, like I said, the way we live out here is different from, you say these are bigger communities, and they are, but they're not, with the exception of Chicago, these are not places like New York or the Bay Area, where there are huge Jewish communities and lots and lots and lots of people of color and Jewish people of color. And so what the online programming has allowed us to do is make a place for people to be able to connect, even if they're the only Jewish person of color in their community. We have people on the ground in the communities I mentioned, but we serve people in many, many, many more communities than the ones I listed. And so we've been able to engage people who we wouldn't be able to engage otherwise. Also, one of the things about living in the Midwest is we're also much farther away from each other. And so if you're on the East Coast and you're doing an event in New England, it's much easier for people around the East Coast and much cheaper for them to get to wherever your event is going to be.
Right.
But for us, it's really expensive to get from where I live in Madison. It's just really expensive to get in and out of here. So for me to get to even Chicago is much different from going from, DC to some other place that's pretty close.
Right.
So, and so the online programming has enabled us to serve people without having to pay a lot of money for travel, people who otherwise wouldn't be able to engage.
Yeah, and so sort of as a follow to that question in terms of like how your work is able to engage all these different people, can you tell me a little bit more about your organizational theory of change? We talked a little bit earlier about the ambitious objectives you all have about ending racism in Jewish communal life. Tell me a little bit more about how you see your work as functioning to move towards that goal.
Yeah. Well, our theory of change is that if we invest in the leadership of Jewish people of color in our region, and we work to center the local people in everything we do, and we take a regional approach, and we do what we call our in-reach outreach strategy, which is about working to address the effects of racism on our Midwest Jewish community life as Jews of color, and also work to build and be a part of and facilitate coalitions that are focusing on ending racism in the wider world, then we will eventually end
Right.
the effects of racism on Midwest Jewish community life. And as theories of change often are, it's a little bit grandiose. But what I'd like to pull out from there is that our North Star is investing in the leadership of Jews of color in our region. And it's been an amazing North Star to go back to again and again. We've been in some complicated relationships and situations where I've been able to say, and our North Star is
Yeah.
investing in the leadership of Jews of color in our region. And this means, yes, we'll do this, or no, we're not gonna go in that direction. I'll also tell you now about our strategic priorities that we've been working on. We did a strategic planning event with our full team a little while back, and we came up with 5 priority areas. One is professionalizing our work. So the work to create our regional team of staff has been a part of that. Serve the community, grow the community is kind of a bit of a broad area for our second priority, but it's where we put a lot of important things that we're doing and that we've been wanting to do, including launching an EDOT Fellows program. We have folks on the ground who are kind of like permanent fellows in our program, but we really want to create something that's bringing in more people, doing more education, and also for folks who might not want to commit to being an EDOT local point for the next however long, but they really do want to engage with us and learn together and contribute. Anyway, our third priority area is outward facing contributions to the Jews of color and Jews of color organizations ecosystem, including publishing and telling our story more than we've been doing. Funding strategy. One of the things that we've learned along the way is that we need to, we figured this out right at the beginning, that we need to develop a much more broad and sophisticated development strategy for moving our work forward. And then finally, measuring impact. There's some really cool work that's happening in our ecosystem around formal program evaluation. And so we're excited to be a part of that. EDOT is one of the early adopters with TUV, which is a JOC-led hub for culturally responsive evaluation of Jewish community racial justice initiatives. And so we're excited to be a part of doing more evaluation work. And going back to our theory of change and our logic model and updating it with some new measurable outcomes for ourselves. So that's a little bit about our strategic priority areas that we're working on over these next 3 years.
Yeah, and worth shouting out as well that TU is a JLF grantee also.
Yes, that's right. Go TU.
So, tell me a little bit, it's great hearing about kind of like the theory of change and strategic priorities. Tell me, about some more concretely wins that you all have had in your work, give me some highlights.
Oh my gosh. Well, a big highlight is, and it's been a little bit maybe unexpected looking at the micro, but totally not expected looking at the macro. Because again, the theory of change is that as we're investing in the leadership of our folks in our region, providing the organizational backing for folks' leadership that they often aren't getting from their mainstream Jewish community organizations where they live, that we will move our work forward. And so a big win has been what's been happening with this kind of informal leadership development and coaching work that we've been doing. And we're looking forward to collecting some of those stories in this next period and doing more to tell the world about those wins, including a really big one that's coming. I'm not at liberty to say the name of the person or the job that they're going to be moving into, but it's really exciting. We have also had a lot of wins around building organizational relationships and providing technical assistance to mainstream Jewish organizations to help them to do better around their diversity, equity, and belonging work. We engaged with federations to help them to do some strategic planning and to provide some technical assistance for them in doing so. And I just did an in-depth follow-up interview with one of those federations, and I was really excited, and they were really excited to share with us how they have been moving the work forward. I'll also say that a big win has been establishing a EDOT as a hub for our region. We have different needs than folks in bigger communities in different places. You know, Jordan, there are cultural differences from Springfield, Illinois to, I forgot where you live now, but to bigger
Providence,
cities.
Rhode Island. Yep, exactly.
Providence, Rhode Island, right? Which might not be Manhattan, but it's not Springfield.
It's not Springfield, yeah.
And so people come to us to partner, to get our advice, to get our support through our Midwest lens. And that's been amazing. And I think we've also made some big contributions to the.
Oh, sorry, we had a quick technical difficulty, little glitchiness on Zoom there. But just to finish up, was going to ask, if someone is a Midwestern JOC and looking to get involved, or just someone looking to follow along with their work, where can they find you?
Midwestern JOCs, we want to hear from you. Email us at info@edotmidwest.org, EDOTMIDWEST.org. Organizations, we want to partner with you. We are also on social media at EDOT Midwest, on Facebook, on Twitter a little bit, and on Instagram a little bit, but we're there. And another thing, Jordan, that's important for us here in the Midwest is what we've seen is that most of the Jews of color in the Midwest we're engaged with and who are engaged in the Jewish community are kids. They're kids, and many of them are in mixed families, right, where there isn't any JOC parent in the family. And so we have figured some things out, and we're looking forward to actually launching some new initiatives that are going to focus more on diverse families and that are going to make space for non-JOC parents who have, or non-JOC family members, but who have Jews of color in their families to get them involved and to develop their leadership around this work. So if you're in the Midwest and anything that we've talked about here today is something you'd like to get involved with, we want to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shahanna. Amazing to hear about you all's work. I'm sure, hopefully someone will come along and send an email, whether it's from this or just from hearing about you all's work in awesome Midwest Jewish community. Thanks so much, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye.